Hi everybody, welcome back to the Millcreek Government Channel. Today, a favorite topic of everybody's. I know you're going to love this one, so gather your friends, your relatives, your neighbors, because today we are talking about taxes, your taxes. And here to tell us everything about that is the head of the Erie County Office of Assessment, which is a part of the Department of Finance for Erie County Government, Mr. Scott Moss. Scott, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Phil.
Nice of you to have us. Take a look at what's behind us, and I will read it out loud because it's quite important that you have this information to discuss your property, your taxes. At the top, value, which we'll get to, and then Erie County assessment statistics. And you'll see scattered around, perhaps a little difficult to see, but Scott, closest to you over there is?
This is a version of a software that we use to help us become more efficient in doing assessment work.
All right, that's the Albion Prison.
And it shows the dimensions.
Prison?
Yep, it shows the dimensions we now can measure from the air.
Okay, and over here it says sales versus value, which means?
What we're looking at is the trend of sales in the marketplace so that we can be as accurate as possible on assessed value.
Okay, and as we move down to the bottom, it says Pictometry, which is?
Pictometry is a software that we use. It's actually a company, Pictometry International, that does aerial imagery for us. And
so you mean that it's planes that fly over our property?
That's correct.
And take pictures of our property?
Correct.
Which we'll get to in a little bit. I didn't realize this. In order for those pictures to happen, this is down here, there has to be no leaves on the trees. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
So that would mean we're taping this when there are no leaves on the trees. So you really got the fall or the spring. You really can't do it too much in late spring or summer because, well, you obviously can't see anything. So let's start at the top. 3 approaches to the value of your property. Replacement cost, new, less depreciation, which means?
Cost approach to value is replacement cost, new, less depreciation, meaning that if you wanted to replace that property today, what it would cost you to replace it is determined by the sticks and bricks, as we call it,
okay.
The construction costs.
Okay. Second, market approach, sales history and comparable.
The market approach is looking at the sales versus value up there as part of that. It's the trend, what are comparable properties selling for in the marketplace.
And your neighborhood or the marketplace?
Correct, in your neighborhood or marketplace.
Okay. Income approach, used in the valuation of rent-based commercial properties. We have a lot of those.
Yes, we do. And commercially, this is more of a commercial approach to value. A rent-based property can be valued by its return to the investor, and that's what we use to try to set value in the commercial setting. All
right, a couple statistics that you may not be aware of. That says down here, the assessment statistics. There are currently 122,411 parcels in Erie County. When you say a parcel, this big or that big is a parcel.
Correct.
Okay. Commercially, 9,700. Residentially, by far the most, 107,000, almost 108,000. And then exempt. What do you mean exempt?
There are some properties in Erie County, in Pennsylvania for that matter, that are constitutionally exempt from like schools, institutions of higher learning, churches. And there are other exempts that are nonprofits or veterans exemptions.
Okay, so there's veterans exemptions.
Yes, there is.
A lot of people may not know that there are veterans exemptions. All right, let's say we're going to start. Phil has his property. Okay, I get my tax bill. Your property's assessed that. Now there's a formula that is used for millage that says this is how much you owe in taxes. You got 2 days to talk about that.
Okay. We determine the value for your property and assessment. It's like the beginning of the tax process. We determine value in the assessment end of it because the idea or the theory behind taxation is that we all pay based on what we own. Once we've established an assessed value, the taxing bodies, through the need of in their budgets, sets a millage rate.
Which is primarily the city or the municipality, the school district, and the county.
Correct.
Okay.
That determines how much your tax bill will be based on need. But the process is that millage rate is used to multiply times your value, your assessed value, to determine that tax.
So it was a long period of time, 1969, I believe, up until the year 2003, there was no assessment done because politically that's a bombshell.
It is.
Because people going, let's leave it alone, let's leave it alone. Well, you got to imagine in that period of time, from 1969 to 2003, don't you think your property either went up or down in value? Well, that's why in 2003 it was done, and then some people went here, and some people went here, and some people went like this, and people went, holy smokes, what are you doing? Boy, they're flooding into the courthouse saying, I need to appeal this. This is absolutely horrible. I've never paid this much in my life. Why am I paying it now? Now I'm going to jump ahead just a moment. So 10 years later, in the year 2013, it was done again, which was groundbreaking, okay?
Yes.
Pretty much lowered things and made things pretty much where they should have been in 2003. But let's go to Phil. Damn it, Scott. My property is assessed too high. What recourse do I have? I have a bunch of papers in front of me here that tell me I can do something about this.
Everyone in Pennsylvania has the right to appeal their property assessment from January 1st to August 1st in Erie County, September 1st in some other counties every year. And the theory there is that, you know, the market changes, things happen to people's homes, depreciation. Many factors can go into the value of your property, and it may change. It's important to understand that in Pennsylvania we work in base year assessment, which means each reassessment year is a base year. Our most current is 2013.
Okay.
Once that assessment is set in the base year, we have to have something that opens that property up to the appeal. And what happens is you have to come before the Board of Assessment Appeals.
Okay. So there are people beside yourself that work in concert to determine this. People who are very qualified, have gone through courses, have to be certified.
Correct.
Yeah.
The Board of Assessment Appeals is made up of realtors and appraisers.
Okay.
People who work in the profession.
Right.
And their ability to know the market value is extremely important in the process because they stay current. They're in the business.
So let's assume, I'll use my property, our property. Somebody actually goes by the house and actually takes a picture of it, or actually makes a record of it. They don't just sit there and go through a book and go, oh yeah, that's worth this. That's gone away. They're physically on the road, rubber boots on the ground, looking at the properties, all 122,000 of them, which takes a long time.
That's correct.
And it's quite expensive to do, I might add. So, okay, so here's what happened. He was talking about changes. I'm going to hold this up, and when Natalia edits this, you'll know what I'm talking about. Here's what a piece of property looked like in 2009, and here's what it looked like in 2015. And you can see they've done this because they've taken a picture of it from the air, which is the way they do this everywhere. They do this everywhere?
In Erie County, we do.
Okay.
It's becoming more and more of a trend. Because what happens is, you have to understand by state law, we have to visit your property.
Okay.
Okay?
Have to visit the property.
We must visit the property.
Okay.
So the idea is to streamline that operation.
All right. Here's another one from the air, Sienna Trail. I'm not holding up anything that isn't public information. Sienna Trail, as it was, I hope you can see there was no glare. You can see there's a house or two, you know, some dirt, and then what it became.
In 2 years' time.
In 2 years' time. So obviously the developer knew what he or she was doing because they put a lot of homes on Sienna Trail and Laurie Drive, which is just off of Hammett Road. So, and I also have a map here. Take a close-up at this shot over here too, Natalia. This would be a topography map, which tells you what?
Tells you the slope or grade of a property. Someone comes to our office and tells us they have an issue with, you know, steep grade or problems with their property as far as elevation goes. This type of map allows us to see it on a map. That there's actually that steep decline or incline.
Okay. And the last one I just want to show you is, again, a development from a developer showing you that there are homes on site and the lots are ready to be developed, and it lists the sizes of the lots.
This photo actually shows you the sale prices.
The sale price of the lot.
That's the Sienna Trail as well.
Okay. This is the sale price of the lot.
That's correct.
Okay. That's gives you a lot of information, and this is all public information.
It's all public information
Where do I find it?
on our Erie County website,
Which is?
Erie County, www.eriecountypa.gov.
Yeah, got to tell you that it's changed. ErieCountyPA.gov, because ErieCountyGov.org, people were getting directed to Buffalo.
Correct, yes.
Because Buffalo has an Erie County too. So I go, oh, Scott, geez, I got to appeal. Here it is. Got your letter. Notice of intention to appeal property assessment. This is it, baby. What do I do with this?
So basically,
How do I get it in your hands?
basically what happens, normally two things happen. One, you either come to our office and tell us that you feel your property is over.
In the courthouse?
Correct.
First floor? Come in, turn right?
Room 104.
Okay.
Or you go online and get the appeal form offline and you can fill it out and send it in. It is pretty self-explanatory. We do like to have the public come and see us in the office because it gives us an opportunity to kind of pre-evaluate your situation.
Mm-hmm. Now, this says my notice of intention to appeal. And this is more like what it might look like. You can see it's pretty simple to fill out. Actually, it's front and back. It's not complicated. Okay, so that you look at it and you go, whoa, we made a mistake. This is, how do we do this? Well, let's call you in. So, Phil, tell us your story.
What happens is that when you come and see us or we talk about this before you file the appeal, you understand because we're in a base year assessment, we can't change your value without you going and seeing the board. So we need to schedule you an appeal to go in front of the board.
Okay.
When you come and visit us, what we do is help you figure out whether or not that's going to be advantageous to you.
Okay.
There are a lot of things that going into making a successful appeal. The highlighted portions of those forms are giving you like the important things you need to understand about that.
That's the yellow and the red part.
Yes.
Yeah.
The appeals
Read this
board-
carefully.
The appeals board they cannot determine value based on assessments. In other words, comparing your assessment to your neighbor's assessment is not a good way to appeal.
Okay.
That's done in a reassessment year.
Okay.
Under the board's review, what they're looking for are comparable sales. Homes like your home, properties like your property that's sold somewhere relatively near to your property that is as much like it as possible.
Okay.
Okay, that is very powerful in determining the final value on your property.
Okay. I'm sorry, go ahead. I cut you off. I didn't mean to.
Well, the idea is that if you're going to go through the process, which there is a $50 processing fee to do this.
Just going to ask you that. There's a fee.
We want you to take full advantage of it.
Okay.
Okay, so it's not going to be helpful for us to not give you help figuring out what your assessment should be.
All right.
But that's the process. You schedule and you get pulled in.
My understanding was you get one free or not anymore. It's $50 now to
Only in a reassessment year.
only in a reassessment year, this is not this year. All right, so we get there, and I say, I'm sorry, I still do not agree with you. I think you've made a huge mistake here. What's my recourse? Do I go home and cry, or does it go to another level?
From the board?
Yes.
It goes to common pleas level. If you choose to appeal the board's decision,
Right.
it's called a de novo hearing.
Okay.
Starting over, and you go to common pleas court.
That's Erie County Common Pleas Court, and then you wait your turn, which could be months, maybe longer.
Maybe longer,
Maybe
yes.
longer, because there's a lot of people who have appeals, and I have them in my hand here, as to large pieces of property worth millions of dollars, and people are appealing these decisions. And so the judge then will make a decision and say, I'm sorry, Phil, you lose. It's a two-part question here. Or, I'm sorry, Phil, yeah, you win. But let's say Phil loses. So I lose. What's it cost me now to have this all done, probably through a lawyer, through the judges, through the courts, months of waiting?
Well, depending on the value, it could be very expensive.
Okay. And if I win, what happens then?
If you win, we had to pay back money.
You have to pay me back
That's
money.
correct, yes.
You have to go and say, yeah, your property should have been evaluated or at this particular level. Okay.
That's correct.
All right. Is it fair to ask you how many people come in and are doing this, or do they feel somewhat satisfied, but they look at it and they go, yeah, they're probably right? Or do you have people lined up outside the door out on the 6th Street past Route 20?
We had a pretty busy year this year, 504 appeals.
Is that a
were
lot?
Actually scheduled. It's up from the last couple of years, but we've, the point is that of those 504, they were probably only a quarter of who came and saw us in the
Okay, the rest
office.
failed to appear.
No, they came in and talked to us. We have a motto in assessment.
Okay.
And it is that I may not make you happy when you leave, but you will at least understand the process, okay?
Well, I don't know anybody that wants to pay more.
Well, I
taxes.
don't really know anybody who wants to pay taxes at all. In
Period.
fact, I'm one of them. But,
Well, I am too.
but the fact of the matter is we're trying to invoke the fairness in it. And the only way to do that is to have an open mind and discuss it with the public so they're educated, so they understand what it's about.
Okay.
As far as folks coming in, as long as they understand it, the most common statement made to us is, I'm here to appeal my taxes.
Right.
The reality of it is you're coming to appeal your assessment, your value,
The value.
okay?
Yes.
So we have to quickly focus their attention on the valuation part of it.
Okay. Okay. There is meetings constantly to determine people who have veterans exemptions. There are court cases involving very large pieces of property, which I'm sure you will more than likely see reported in the newspaper as opposed to electronic media. The newspaper can make sense of a lot of numbers that are going on there. There are people who complain and say that too many nonprofits get off too easily. How did you get to be a nonprofit? You enjoy all of the amenities, the fire, the police, you get the streets plowed, etc. There is a thing out there called the HUP test, H-U-P, Hospital Utilization Project. Sounds real fancy. 5 points. You want to tell them about that?
Well, what it is, the HUP test explains what grants someone exemption
Okay.
from the General Assembly.
Yeah, this comes from the legislature
Correct.
and the courts.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
The 5-point HUP test was established in 1985, and it establishes that there are 5 points that you need to meet in order to achieve exemption. Back in 1995, I believe it was 95 or 97, we had the legislature go through a process where they expanded HUP, where they tried to, the Nonprofits Act is what it was called, tried to open it up so that nonprofits could get exemption for the right reasons. The problem with it was that it wasn't clear. It wasn't clear enough as to how to determine what's a substantial portion of your gifting or your gratuities.
Okay.
Who is a subject of charity? Who meets that criteria? So recently, there was a case in Supreme Court, Pennsylvania Supreme Court, that explained that you have to meet the 5-point HUP test first.
Okay.
And if you don't even move on to it.
And you have to meet all 5 points.
That's correct.
You can't hit 3.4.
No,
you
that's
got to hit
correct.
them all.
All 5.
Yeah. Can you remember what they are? I should have brought them with me.
I don't want to try to quote them right now. I can give you the visual,
Yeah,
so you have
okay.
it. It's basically renders a substantial portion of their gifts to charitable subjects of charity, relieves the government of a burden. It has no private profit motive, and
You're right. I should have brought it with me.
yeah, I should have actually. But I can give you that. That's,
Yeah, they've been substantiated by the courts very strongly that says, yes, well, you go ahead and try to budge these off of there and you're going to meet us in court with this. But you run into the problem, and people have known this before, in the city of Erie, about 30% of the property, the valuation, is nonprofit.
Right.
And people are saying, that's out of control. How do we change that? I don't want to put you on the spot, but how would you change that?
The issue for us is that I believe when they started writing the laws about charitable organizations or exemption, the intent was to make them grow. The situation we have now is that end of our economy has grown robustly, and they now have assets. Okay, in the past, most nonprofit charities owned no assets, very
Right.
little assets.
Right.
Today, for many reasons, nonprofits end up owning real property. And that's where the question of taxation comes in. Understand that a 501c3 or a nonprofit charitable organization is granted their exemption based upon federal and state exemption laws.
Okay.
For IRS, for sales tax. It's presumed that if you meet that criteria, that you will be tax exempt in real estate taxes as well, but it's not assured. So the reason that you come in for the appeal with the board is so that whether they can determine whether you meet those requirements to be an exempt entity.
Okay. This is maybe too hot of a question. Do you foresee that shifting and moving and changing? Because as you said, some of these, and this is not just here.
No.
This is all over the United States. This is happening. Do you see this changing? And people are saying, well, wait a minute, you're paying your executives well into the six figures, and you are not performing what you used to do. You've changed.
Well, I think that, I mean, absolutely, I believe it's changing. I don't think we really have a choice. We as we can see by our budget processes that we're having right now with the state and with the costs of education and everything else that goes into it, you know, there isn't a limitless amount of money that's available. We can't keep raising the taxes to cover the cost all the time. So there has to be some check on it to how much, how big, how, you know, we have to weigh that. And, you know, it comes to the board, who has a very difficult task on their hands, to determine whether or not this nonprofit meets a charitable meaning or that nonprofit doesn't. And that's a very tough thing to do, but it's going to have to change because, you know, you can't overburden the taxpayers. It slows growth. It's counterproductive for us.
All right. One more slide I want to show you that Scott brought. And again, this is public property, so we're not showing anything. You may know or not know that your property is online and it can be found. This one is one of those Sienna Trail pieces that we showed you a little earlier. Has a picture of the house and it has all the information listed on there. So if you're going house hunting and you're saying, you know, I don't need to drive out there. How do I know what's inside the house? Yada, yada. How do they find what's on here? Where do they find this?
Some years ago, about 2008, when I took over as director, one of the things that I realized early on is that we needed more information in order to be better at what we do.
Okay.
And the Greater Erie Board of Realtors was kind enough to allow us to get subscriptions to their MLS listing site.
Okay.
Because it's in all of our interests, the realtors, the public, and us, to make sure that the information is accurate. So when a house goes up and is listed, we know that it's being listed, we know that it's being asked for it, we know what it's selling for, we know the amenities in the property, on top of our own due diligence of going to the property and discovering what's there.
How do they find this information here? How do they find what you have?
Well, we find what they have.
You find what they have. So
Yes.
you need to go to their site, and
Correct.
it should be listed there. In fact, it's advertised.
It is advertised, absolutely, yeah.
Sunday paper by far the most, the biggest, and then they have the homes section, which you'll see. And in fact, you'll even tell you, go to da-da-da-da-da. They'll give you the address in some cases, and then you have to just GPS the address, and you can see where that's really located, because some of these addresses, people do not know where this is. So it's become extremely transparent, is what I hear you saying?
Yes, absolutely. And aside from that, Phil, one of the things you want to remember as well is that some folks aren't computer savvy. They don't work with the computers or anything of that nature. This information is available free of charge in any supermarket lobby.
Yeah.
It's the Saturday Parade of Homes or
Sure.
the Harbor, you know, the Homes
Yeah.
magazines that are there available for free. It's the same information.
Okay.
It's a little dated, maybe a few months.
Yeah, but yeah.
It's still good information. And whenever
Sure.
someone comes and meets with us or talks to us about it, that's the first place we direct them.
Okay, okay. Again, Scott Moss, the director of the assessment office, the Office of Assessment. They're part of the Department of Finance in Erie County government. And if you're looking to value your home, you want to sell it, many people simply move out and rent their home. Is that, they can do that too?
Rent is king right now.
Right now, rent
Yes,
is
it is.
king.
It is.
It is, wow. I know that down around the courthouse, Gannon University has a lot of properties that they rent, which they rent, yeah. And then the statistics are pretty big, 122,400 parcels. They can be as wide, that wide, or they can be 100 acres. They still count that as one. Anything we didn't touch on? Can they bang on your door, have a cup of coffee with you, and say,
Anytime.
I want to discuss my property?
That's why we're there. And we would be more than happy to discuss it with anyone. You need to come in and meet with us. We don't really schedule appointments. If we need to, we will. But there's 9 assessors there that can give you a hand with figuring out what you're looking at, and a staff that's eager to help.
I liked what you said a little earlier. We're not discussing your taxes, we're discussing your assessment, because that's what your taxes are based on, what the value of the place you call home, or whatever it is you want to call it. That's what is set by the market. Yeah. Are we okay here? We doing okay compared to other communities as far as value?
Well, there's a confusion that folks in my business have about what's called common level ratio.
Yes,
and that's
CLR.
the disparity from sale price to the base year assessment. Some folks who work in my business become aggravated when their common level ratio grows or goes down, actually. And what it really is an estimation of your current market economy.
Okay.
We're at 95% from 2013. That's a good thing.
Sure is.
If it gets too far away in, say, the 80% area, we have to start thinking about another countywide reassessment at that point. The idea is that the market tells us what to do.
Okay. Okay. We have a couple of minutes left, and I know you've all heard this about when you have people who live in New York, or they live in LA, or they live in San Diego, or they live in the big booming Sun Belt, and I go, wow, that home in blah, blah, blah would cost this much. Last question. People getting a big bang for their buck here?
If you look outside of Erie County, you will find that we get a great bang for our buck. Erie County is, the real estate is cheap compared to the rest of the Commonwealth. And for what you get here, it's a ridiculously good deal. Because we live here, we don't realize it.
Good words. Thanks for all your good advice too, and explaining all of this and the slides which you've seen. Scott Moss, again, he is from the Office of Assessment. He is the head, which is part of the Department of Finance for Erie County government. Again, everybody, thank you to Scott. Drop in, as I said, have a cup of coffee with him, discuss your property if you're so inclined. Until next time, I'm Phil Fatica. Take care.
You're watching the Millcreek Government Channel, powered by WQLN Public Media.